Good evening and welcome. I'm Bobby Kinzer, and that's Thomas Doty. And we are the FITT Show, which stands for financial information for today and tomorrow. We're so glad you joined us this wonderful evening. Our goal of our show is to help our people get their finances in shape. We know there's many people struggling how to handle the money management issues and developing good decision-making habits on their finances and making it a better way for them to enter into the financial mainstream. So that's why we got together and put this show together. We both are two Penn State University attendees. He graduated, I transferred and graduated from the University of the District of Columbia, but we played basketball there. And we're fraternity brothers, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Now, please join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Make sure you tell your friends, go out there and let them know that we are out there. And please, 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 we want y'all to click the like button as many times as you can and put something in the comment box, because this way we can get traction with our viewers and Facebook will expand our viewership. So if you don't mind, we really would appreciate that. And we thank you so much for doing that. So last week's show was about retirement planning. This week's show is technologies and your money. Yeah, to resist is futile. And we're going to talk about this, you all, because right now, this is the big thing right now. Smartphones, internet, Wi-Fi, all of this great stuff is out there. And we're going to have a talk about how that applies to your finances today. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my good partner, Thomas Doty. How you doing, Dote?
I'm doing great. Wonderful evening. Looking forward to our show tonight. Hope we can pass on some knowledge.
Well, you're looking absolutely marvelous. And I got to tell you, you look marvelous. So, Dote, question.
Yes.
What is the best investment you ever made?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny. I made a lot of money on Microsoft, a lot of money. But right now, I have the bulk of my money handled professionally by people by Fidelity, that's what they do. It's too much money for me to try to manage myself because I'd be competing against people who do that for a living. And so I do have a small piece of money that I do invest personally. And I do that based on some of the analysis that I do. And again, still realizing I'm not a professional, and the bulk of my money is better left to somebody who does that for a living, does it professionally. But to answer your question, I made a lot of money on Microsoft.
Dope, now that's pretty interesting, though. For a minute, but tell me this, though. As much knowledge you have, CPA, MBA, you rely on some other financial advisors to help you manage your money?
Oh, without question, because they do that for a living. And I'm retired. I'm not going to spend all day trying to figure out where to invest. And people can think they know as much as the professionals do, but there's just no way. You cannot study enough. You cannot read enough. You cannot know enough. And that's why I recommend mutual funds and index funds that mirror the market, because there's no way the average person has the expertise to invest in the market, to know what they're doing, understand the risk and all the things that go into investing. So I have mine handled professionally.
And you know, that's interesting because that's the same strategy I use with taxes. I could probably do my own taxes, but I don't keep up on every day with the tax changes, the same thing. Same thing with investing. You know, I'd rather go with somebody who's on top of it and deal with it every day, you know, and use that expertise. That's very interesting, Dope. Dope, the best investment I ever made was on knowledge, Dope. Best investment I ever made was when I went overseas. I didn't finish my degree, but I came back after a year of playing and I finished my degree and I went back. And when I finished playing, I then went to senior finance school because I was a sociology and anthropology major. I went to asset liability management school. I went to management training in Denver. I went and I just was sucking up as much knowledge as I could about the business that I entered into, was dealing with finance and investing and investment advisory. And so the best investment I ever made was actually knowledge, buying books. I read a lot, and I think that's one of the greatest investments that I still do. And actually, Warren Buffett, he's like, man, he reads everything. He reads about all his competitors and even other people and what they're doing, because that's how you learn. And that was the biggest investment I made. Like this one book by our frat brother, though, Dennis Kimbrough, called The Wealth Choice, a great book. Another book I read was called Good to Great by Mr. Collins. I just read some great, wonderful book. Think and Grow Rich. So that was the best investment I ever made, was investing into knowledge. And it has been paying off. It's my base for everything that I do going forward. So anyway, that's what I did, though. So let's jump into the topic today, though. Why is using technology to manage your money so important? And though it's interesting that many seniors, and a matter of fact, a lot of millennials often find it challenging to learn how to use new technologies. According to a survey by this university called Chapman University, they said 15% of Americans are either afraid or very afraid of technologies that they don't understand. However, facing these challenges, facing these fears is so important in helping them learn to make technology work for you. Because if you do, it can lead to huge rewards. I'm talking about especially like, saving time, saving money, and also the main one is making you feel empowered, giving you a sense of control over your own money. Now, in the past, managing your money was limited to methods like having a relationship with your local banker or sitting down, with a person in your bank. But now we have technologies, and gives you so many more options on how to be able to manage your money. Because in the past, you would sit down with a professional and you would give them your money to invest it in stocks, in bonds, and things like that. While these traditional money management methods are all valuable, technologies offer you way more options that will allow you to better take charge of your money. Now, this doesn't mean that we're going to be telling you to get rid of the traditional money managing habits. That's not what we're saying. What we're going to be talking about and recommending tonight is actually combining the two, because it's still it's still valuable to use the old traditional ways of money management habits. But when you add technologies and the advantage of modern technologies, you can get way more out of your money. So with that, Dope, why don't you answer the second part of our statement tonight? Why is it futile to resist?
Yeah, I think everything's going that direction. I know, but right before I retired, we eliminated paper checks. I mean, paper checks are going away. A lot of things that we used to do on paper are just basically disappearing. Everything's going to doing it on a computer, on a mobile device. And so you're going to be stuck, forced to use technology. And it's better to get out in front of it and learn it, because that's the direction that everything's going.
So true. So true. So with that, Dope, let's talk about online banking and mobile devices.
Okay. The important thing to look at is, and I consider both of those the same, whether you're doing it online or you're doing a mobile device. The basic things we're going to talk about are the same. And it's little bitty things like setting up alerts, looking at your balances, reviewing how much money you have in your account. You can get emails, you can get notifications to let you know when things are happening. And that way you can stay on top of your account balances, know how much you got. You can know when your funds are getting low. You can just be in charge of your money. You have to protect your personal information. You have to, don't share your PIN or your password with anybody, and don't save them on your mobile device. And I know that's difficult because you have to pick a nice, strong password, but you have to be able to remember it. And so you want to use something strong, but not something that you easily forget. And don't save your password handy. A couple other tips are, if you lose your phone, you might be focused on getting to your mobile provider. But the thing is, if you have mobile apps out there, you need to make sure you're getting to your financial providers and making sure that you put stops on your credit cards and on your accounts to make sure people aren't getting at your money. And you want to make sure you use secure websites or apps. You don't want to, like if you have an Apple phone, you don't want to use non-Apple apps because those things are easily hacked. And try to stay away from public Wi-Fi because people hack those all the time. So you want to use a private network or go somewhere where you can use a network that's secure and has a password. And lastly, don't keep any sensitive information on your phone, like your checking account numbers and routing numbers and things of that sort. So you want to make sure you keep that someplace else that's safe.
And also though it eliminates you having to use a stamp or relying on the Pony Express snail mail that we have nowadays, right?
That's for sure. And making sure you're not late with your payments, or making sure you stay on top of, like, you can get a notification that tells you your payment's due in a few days. You get a notification that says your account balance has reached some certain level that you preset. Those are the kind of things you need to stay on top of so you don't get all these crazy charges that banks like to add to you.
Go ahead. I mean,
no, go ahead.
I got friends to this day that walk around though with big wads of cash in their pocket, and they walk around like a pork chop in a lion's cage, right? So this also eliminates you carrying a bunch of cash. I mean, I know some people. Do you carry much cash though? I mean, we shouldn't be saying this on the air. I hope you don't. Might be waiting outside your door.
No, I also pack, so they better be ready if they do. But
thank you. Let's take care of that. Thank you very much.
Right. No, but I don't. And if you do things online, you actually need less cash. And as I said before, I try to use credit cards for everything I do because I'm always trying to chase points. And the other thing I have is I pay to have a service where if I lose my credit card, I call one number. If I lose my wallet, I call one number, and they cancel all of my credit cards in one call. So if you do, make sure you do carry your wallet and you have all your credit cards in it. Make sure you have the numbers to call to cancel those if you lose your phone or your wallet. Okay.
Very important, though. But another benefit is you got access to your accounts 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can look in and keep track of your money any time of the day. So talk a little bit about.
You know what else, Bob? You ain't paying a stamp. I mean, stamps used to be a dime. I'm dating myself, but they talked about raising the price to 58 cents, which is a lot of money. But if you're paying 6-7 stamps a month, and you guys know I'm an accountant. I save every penny I can. I don't waste any money. So I don't pay any bills. I use technology to pay my bills. I use either an app to pay, or I set up automatic payments so I never forget to make a payment. And you can do things like set up a minimum payment just to make sure you're never late. Or you can set it up, as I would recommend, to pay the full balance off every month to make sure you're not paying interest. But again, you saves you going to pay a bill in person or mailing a bill if you do it online with technology.
And it's the little amounts that add up, like that 58 cents that you talk about for stamp. It's not the big amount. It's not the $250, the $500, $1,000 that you had to kick down. So it's those little amounts that add up. And using technologies is definitely a way to save money. Before we get off of online banking, though, speak a little bit about the old traditional way of writing checks.
Yeah, that's scary. You have to be very, very careful now. And I think the banking industry is addressing this, but you do realize that the routing number and account number is on every check that you write. I think there's a few banks that have started to remove that from checks. But think about it. If you have that information, you can withdraw money from any account if you have the routing number and a checking account number. So that's a danger of using a check, because if somebody gets their hand on your mail and you're mailing a check, they have access to your account through the routing number and checking account number that's on a check. So I write very few checks. I have trouble even recalling the last check that I wrote, because I pay everything online. And again, there are risks to doing that online, and there are precautions you need to take. But putting your routing number and checking account number is a huge risk that a lot of people don't realize that's out there.
And now check this out, because this is what we learned in our fraud class at the FDIC where I used to work. Not only, though, do you have the routing number, the account number, you have your name, your address on the check too. And though, check this out. Not only do you have all that on a check, but you also have your signature on the check. And what people don't know, there's it's a uniball pen. When you write, it bleeds into the paper. People don't know this. Most pens, when you write, sign on a check or write things on a check, it is sitting on top of the paper. And there are materials that you can get right out of CVS, and you can pick the signature right off the check. What people don't understand that most all checks are not even printed by banks. They printed by some third-party company. So it goes to them outside and then comes back. So that's why it's so important that check writing is really sort of going out the window. And like we say, to resist is futile. But
yeah, it's kind of funny. This is more geared toward the older people, because I don't think any of my 4 kids have ever written a check. You know, they do everything with technology.
Man, my friend's son is 27 years old, and he has never wrote a check in his life.
Right.
Isn't that wild? That's pretty interesting. That's actually very interesting. Hey, Doug, I want to switch to talking about online shopping. Okay, online shopping is the big thing right now, and you can greatly improve your financial situation by investing your money and putting it to work for you. But you can also further and improve your financial health by saving money on the things that you buy. After all, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? And online shopping is one of the easiest ways and most convenient ways to save money. The biggest benefit is that it allows you to compare prices, and you can look around and shop and do comparison shopping. So it saves you time, and it's just, instead of, just going online, you can look around in different places. So, Doug, I want to talk for a minute about the advantages of the advantages and disadvantages of shopping online. Because just like we know with everything, there's pluses and minuses. But the interesting thing, though, about technologies is or you have to. It's only three things that you can have, and that's internet connection, Wi-Fi, a computer, a laptop, or a smartphone. But you know what's so interesting though about smartphone? There's a lot of people who are not that smart that got a smartphone. I ain't lying. But one of the advantages is, you don't have no wasting time anymore. Riding all around from store to store and driving, gas and driving, going to store. And before you go online, you should use the power of the internet to compare the prices, the different websites. You can search and just sit right there in your house and actually do those things. Another one though, you must make sure your credit card information is encrypted, and on a website that the information is encrypted. Because every website, every site that you on, even if it's a shopping app, it may not be encrypted. And mostly the smaller vendors that don't have the capacity or the funds to spend to encrypt their account. If that account is not encrypted, you don't need to be out there on it. A lot of times in the internet, they have this little lock up in the corner that lets you know if a site is encrypted or not. And you need to look for that, because if it's not encrypted, that means anybody can get into and hack your information. So it's very important. Next thing about online shopping is you must pay attention to the details. It's just like the truth in lending disclosure document we talked about on credit cards, that whole long page with all that little small print writing that people don't read. The same thing applies to online shopping. You must read on the delivery, the return, and the refund policies. Because some online shopping, their refund policy is like 15 days. Other sites, the return policy is 30 days. It's important that you know that. It's so important that you know that. Then the next thing, you need to understand what information that app or that site collects and find out how your information is shared. They tell you, they gotta be upfront and tell you why it's being shared and what other companies it's shared with. And you need to know how to get help in case of problems. Now, I know this sounds very elementary, but if you don't know the number to call, like Dope just said earlier about if somebody, was to steal, you lost your phone or your credit card, know the numbers. Same thing about if you're out there on online accounts, because if you have a problem, and I know everybody experienced this, Dope, trying to get to a customer service person nowadays with technologies, it is tough. So that's the first thing. Any site you go on, look and see, and they have places on there in case you have problems. How do you solve them? Because that's going to be important. The next thing that is very critical is critically thinking about the online reviews, right? Now, a lot of people, my friends, they check the online reviews, which I think is great, because reading other people's opinions about a product can help you make a decision. But some reviews are downright fake, and they're not completely honest. Though, do you know there's sites out there that actually will put some bad information on themselves to lure the people, to make them think how authentic the reviews are? So that's very important, to make sure you really look and think and actually look and read some of the other, you can tell some of the writings on some of these people that give reviews, and look at the products. So, Dope, I want you to share one of your stories about online, the online shopping, and as far as encrypted sites.
Yeah, when I later rose, I was in charge of our credit function, and we had a retail business that sold to customers, primarily house paint. And we had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to have the credit card information that we got from customers encrypted. And I say that to make sure you know that some of the smaller companies or smaller websites may not be investing into encryption or website protection. I mean, you hear about large companies being hacked and their data being hacked by, whoever does that. And so you want to make sure the company you deal with is reputable, that they would have the wherewithal to invest in encryption for your credit card information, and also to protect your personal data that they collect about you. A lot of times you give name, address, birth date. Some situations you give social security number, which I would always push back when people ask for that. But they still get a lot of your personal information. And if they aren't encrypting it, we were a $15 billion company, so of course we would spend the money to do that. But you got to think a lot of smaller companies would not spend the necessary funds in order to have their data encrypted. So keep that in mind when you're shopping online. You might want to stick to a reputable company and hope that they do not get hacked, because as we all know, they also get hacked. And you got a better chance with a reputable company than you do with a smaller company, I believe.
Hey, Doe, I want to, for a minute, can you share with people for a minute about the difference between using debit cards versus credit cards online?
Yeah, and there's a huge difference. A debit card is basically using cash, and somebody gets their hands on your debit card and your PIN, they can actually access cash, and you don't have the protections that you have with the credit card. I never understood why people use debit cards. Interest rates aren't very high right now, but typically they were. And I always like to use other people's money for as long as I can. So I would always use the credit card and take as long as I could to pay that money back. Now interest rates are zero just about, so it really doesn't matter. But still, debit cards, if that gets stolen, that's like people taking cash right from your bank account. And if you have a theft, a bank can take 30 to 90 days to try to refund your stolen money. And in some cases, they might not. But if you use a credit card and your funds are stolen, the company will more than likely take a couple of days and give you your money back. And the other thing with a credit card you can do is you can dispute a charge, versus with a debit card, as I said, it's like cash. And so that transaction is pretty much complete. So you have some pushback to use with a credit card that you do not with a debit card. Now, some people use debit cards because that is just like cash, and it keeps them from running up a credit bill. But I just think it's more effective to use a credit card because of the safeguards involved and the fact that you have a recourse if it's stolen versus a debit card.
Yeah, see, in the past, one of the reasons why people were using a debit card, because at one time it was a float. If you used a credit card, it didn't hit your account till maybe a day or 2 days later sometimes. Sometimes it was even later than that, remember? But now that money's coming out of your credit just as soon as you use that card. And that's
Right.
another reason why people got used to using the debit, because they were floating. But you can't do that anymore.
Right.
So, Doug, let's switch gears and let's talk about investing using technologies. This is a good one.
Yeah, and it's really easy to do. You can set up automatic investments in a multiple different kind of ways. You can have automatic contributions to a savings account, a checking account, investment accounts, money market, stocks, mutual funds. And if you have an investment account and you have stocks that you buy, you can set up dividend reinvestments, in which case any dividends you get are automatically reinvested into stock as opposed to getting the cash up front. So all those things can happen automatically and can set you on a course to building wealth. You can have an automatic retirement contribution. And what it does is it forces you to consistently put money away, and then you can just start that, have it going into your account, and then you forget about it and you don't have to worry about it. I think that's the most important thing. And we've mentioned this before, but if you invest in a investment account, you also can take advantage of dollar cost averaging. Now, what that does for you, we have a slide to try to help you understand that. It can be a key role in building wealth. And the way that works is, let's just say you're going to contribute $100 a month into your investment account, into a particular stock or a mutual fund. But in this case, we'll say a stock. And the price averages $5 in January, $10 in February, $15 in March, $10 in April. And you buy varying shares based on the price. So your total investment of $400, you'd end up with 46.67 shares. The average market price would be $8.57. Now, what dollar cost averaging does is when the stock price is rising, you're buying less shares, which you'd want to do. When the stock price is falling, you're buying more shares, which again is what you would want to do. So it's very key in building wealth, consistent saving, putting money away periodically, systematically, and it's a good way to build wealth.
So talk about those cash apps and investment apps, though.
Yeah, there's a bunch out there, and what you have to look at, there's things like Robinhood, there's Cash App, there's Venmo. I mean, there's zillions of different cash apps you can use. There's discount brokerage firms, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Personal Capital. And what you have to understand is if you're going to invest yourself, you can use those apps. You can pick your own stocks, and they may have a line to give you advice, but it's really not good, solid advice, in my opinion. And you can also pay to get advice, and you can pay based on percentage of account balance, or you can pay by transaction. There's a bunch of different ways you can pay. There's also apps like Personal Capital that use technology to pick stocks, and they charge a fee based on the amount of money you invest. And in most cases, in most firms, if you're paying a fee, that fee is reduced the more money you invest. And they provide some level of advice based on how much you pay. And so there's a zillion different things out there to do. If you're going to do it yourself, I suggest you use one of the discount brokers, discount apps, and you invest in a broad-based mutual fund that spreads your risk over the whole market, something like a S&P 500 index fund or a international fund, or something that, again, spreads your risk over a large number of stocks. And if you get to the point where you have a considerable amount of money, you may want to consider having a paid investment advisor. But just make sure you're getting good advice, make sure you're reviewing it quarterly. And when you review it, make sure they're doing what you want them to do as far as your risk tolerance, and make sure their performance is equal to what you're expecting. And the basic way you usually measure that is you use the S&P 500 fund as a benchmark. And let's say that averaged 10%. Now, bear in mind, when you say the total 500 index, you're talking about all the risk of all the stocks. So that would be a risk factor. We always talk about 0 to 10. That would be a risk factor of 10. But if your tolerance is 7 and you have an investment advisor investing your money, he probably not going to do as good as the S&P because he's not taking all the risk that the S&P is taking. So theoretically, if your risk factor is a 7 you should at least expect your paid broker to be delivering you at least 70% of whatever the S&P is delivering. And in some cases, a lot do better than that. In some cases, they do worse. But that's something you need to review periodically to make sure they are performing and earning the amount of money that you're paying them.
Now, the upside of using, apps to purchase stocks like Robinhood and Stash and Acorn, and we're not recommending any of those. That's your choice you need to make. But the upside of that, in the past, you used to have to buy whole lots, shares. Mm-hmm. You couldn't buy a piece of a share. You couldn't buy less than 10 shares at one time. But now they're allowing you to buy fractions of shares with these apps. So a lot of people are able, especially the younger people, are using these apps to purchase shares. But the disadvantage side is you have no mediator. You have no broker that is registered and could give you additional advice. You just left on your own, and that's the downside. What happened with the stock GameStop and Robinhood and Riddick, they just got out of hand because everybody was every man for themselves. So that's the downside. But the upside is you can buy partial shares now and get a piece of investing, which I think is really, really great. And the other thing is, Cash App, the actual Cash App dope. If y'all using Cash Apps, Zelle, and people like that, Zelle, the key to Cash Apps, if you're changing cash, the key to Cash Apps is just that. You make sure you know the other person on the other end. That's only one of the real ways that you can basically, at your best, ensure that your money is going to the right place. Don't be sending your money to somebody else that you don't know, and that's how you can get taken. You always must know who the person is on the other side. And I'm not talking about no organization or that you never heard of. You make sure that it's reputable, but especially Cash Apps, that you know that person on the other side, because there's so many scams with people trying to get you to send the money. You are the king of Abu Dhabi, and you aired, and you're supposed to get $223 million. Just Cash App me this 1,000, and you're going to get 200,000. Right, dope.
Yeah. You know what else, Bob? If you're going to use Cash App, I personally recommend you set up a separate checking account to only use for Cash App, and only put money in there when you're going to use Cash App to minimize if there is a breach, somebody can't get to your main or your base checking account. So don't use your account with all your money in it for Cash App. Set up a separate account and just put money in. If you got to send $100 to somebody, transfer $100 to that account, then do Cash App and send that $100 out. Keep that account as low as you can. So if it is breached, your risk is limited because you don't have much money in there. Okay.
Very nice, though. Hey, Dope, got a question. What is a hedge fund?
Hedge fund. I don't know a lot about that, but that's when you get into betting what's going to happen in the future, and that's even riskier than investing in individual stocks. And there are hedge funds managers who, again, do that for a living. I kind of steer clear of hedge funds. I steer clear of options and puts and calls. Those are things that are over my scale.
But basically, the hedge fund is just that. They are hedging against the market, so they will actually kind of protect themselves on both sides. Say if they got a lot of technology stock, they might hedge and put some in some government securities. They might hedge and they might be taking a high risk on one side of the portfolio, but then they hedge against that by taking and investing in something with a low risk. It's they hedging against the market, and that's what the hedge funds are. Good question. Dope. I want to talk about automated financial or automated financial information. Okay, there's a lot out there. Okay, there's a whole lot out there. And one of the first ones I want to talk about using, because they come in handy using these automated financial tools, is an online budget worksheet. Now, there's a plethora of sophisticated yet easy to use online budget software out there. It is easy even before you, and it's easy so you can watch your expenses and balances, and you can also look at them against your income. Okay, you'll find online budgeting incredible, convenient, as the software will automatically download your transactions and attempt to categorize them for you. So there's some great tools. Mint.com is one company out there, app that you can go down to a website, and they may charge some things. They charge for some things they don't, or you just need to just register. But they have wonderful online budget worksheets that really help you track your budget. And there's so many other ones. Then there's other online tools, financial tools that you can use, like mortgage calculators, auto loan calculators, student loan calculators. One other great product out there is called Loan to Me. Loan, the number 2, me, all one word. It's an app. And all you do, you plug in wherever you at. You know the amount and the interest, and it'll tell you if you don't know the duration, it'll give you the duration. If you know the duration and the interest amount, you can plug in either way to find out, how much interest it will cost you, how much interest you will be paying on a loan, how much interest you'll be paying on a mortgage. Then they got apps out there, especially this one particular app. And there's financial calculators out there too.
Hey Bob, let me just interject when you talk about the loan app. When you're going to buy a car or get any kind of loan, use that app to calculate what your payment is going to be, because people make mistakes. Some intentional, some could be honest mistakes. But I've been in a situation where a car dealer miscalculated, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the payment, and I was quick to let him know that that was not the right amount. And not saying everybody's dishonest, but protect yourself. Make sure you know what your rate's going to be. Make sure you know what your payment's going to be. They may do something like add in insurance or something else that you don't want. But if you don't know what your rate is going to be, they could add $5 to your payment. You may or may not know. So go prepared, knowing what your payment should be in any situation where you're dealing with a monthly payment, because people make mistakes.
And it's so important to use an app like this so you know how much interest that you're going to be paying, or should you have to be paying that amount of interest that they're talking about. Because with car dealers especially, they deal either way you want to go. If you say I'm concerned about interest, they'll work it so they give you the interest and then tell you what the final payment is. If you say I'm worried about the cost, they'll figure it out the other way and jack you up. But if you have a calculator, you can put in there and know what you're going to be paying, the actual amount that you're going to be paying in principal and interest. And the reason why these type of tools are important, because you can sit in there and calculate it before you come back and let him know, hey, I know what that is, and I think I can get a better interest rate than having to pay that amount of interest over that period of time. And by the way, by doing that, it shows that you're a little bit savvy and you got some financial knowledge yourself. Because that's the most time they seem like they take advantage of people when they know people don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, or they play the game and you say you want a certain payment and they increase the terms. They give you you got to pay for 6 or 12 more months to get a lower payment. But as Bobby mentioned, you're paying way more interest. So do your homework before you go. Know the term, the payment, and the amount you're borrowing. And so you know what your payment should be. Don't let them hoodwink you with additional costs or additional months to pay.
And the most important thing and there's online debt trackers, you all. The three most key things you need to learn about debt tracking is the amount of interest that you're going to be paying and the duration and how much that total amount is actually going to cost. We got a question though. Is it more financial fiscal to buy or lease a car?
There's so many variations. Again, a lot of it depends on your financial position too. And if you have a business, it's obviously more advantageous to lease because you can write that off against your business. But so much of it depends on the type of car you're borrowing, how long you keep your car, whether you're the type of person that wants a new car every 3 years. So that gets past the fiscal part of it, and that gets more in what we talked about before into your spending habits. So, I mean, it's to make a blanket statement, it's always better to buy a car and keep it for 10 years. But that's not what everybody wants to do. Some people want a new car every year. And if you're that type of person who's going to get a new car every 2 or 3 years, then you're better off leasing. But if you're trying to build wealth, you buy a car and you keep it for as long as it runs. And you get to the point where you pay the car off and live a whole lot of years without a car note, take that money you were paying in the car note, invest it, and get ahead. So that's a kind of a roundabout answer to the question, but there's just too many other factors to go through to say unequivocally one way is better than the other.
Another thing is, if you're a person that put a lot of miles on a car, if you just, you're not a business, because like you said, though leasing is advantageous if you have a business because you write it off. But you're just an individual and you drive a lot, leasing a car is not for you because they have miles that you can't go over that they charge extra. So it doesn't make sense to do that. The last thing I want to talk to you all about is some actual online websites that are free. And these are websites, man. It's wealth of information, a wealth of financial tools. There's an app I want to tell you all about. It's called SFE and PD, Society for Financial Education and Personal Development, Professional Development. They have an app, SFE and PD. They have financial calculators for debt to limit. You can calculate your debt to income when you go and look at buying a house. These tools we're telling you about, it's using technologies, and it helps you to make better decisions and help you to manage your money by using technology so much better. These websites, you all, FDIC.gov, Money Smart, they have so many tools to educate you on credit, on budgeting, on home buying, on entrepreneurship, student loans, consumerfinance.gov, money as you go. That's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created by President Obama. They're the people that now regulate the credit card industry. They have a wealth of free tools and information, lessons that help you teach your young people, help you to teach yourself, your family. MyCreditUnion.gov, Mint.com, IdentityTheft.org. That's the FTC. You should know this, you all. Should you have any kind of scams or any fraudulent things, you should always, one, report it to the police, and two, report it to the FTC. That's what IdentityTheft.org is. And then, this is another important site, TaxpayerAdvocate.irs.gov. This is an advocacy resource powered by the IRS, and I have sent people there, and they have helped people save, or people who had penalties and interest. They went to taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov, and they were relieved of a lot of penalties and interest that they had to pay. Last one, myhome.freddiemac.com. You can take screenshots of these, you all. Calculators, things that will help you so much. Dope, let's bring this home. We at the end of our show, and as we always do, we do takeaways. So let's start it off, Dope, with the first takeaway from what we talked about.
And first thing and most importantly is never use public Wi-Fi. Do not. They get hacked. They have access to your information. Either use your cellular data or wait till you get home, and make sure you have a secure password on your home network if you're going to be doing things online.
Next one, have a strong password that you update periodically. I know some of y'all people have these. You're tired of having so many different passwords, but let me tell you, in the technology world, this is one of your only protections. You gotta have a strong password. Don't be putting in, I love the Lord. I mean, stuff like that, man, that people can break. I mean, I know you do, but Doug, you can't be using passwords like that people can easily break into, okay?
Right.
Doug.
Okay, set your alerts so you're notified of what's going on in your world, okay? So you can keep up to date. You know when your bills due. You know when somebody's using a credit card. You know if there's a foreign transaction. You know what's going on. Take the time to set the alerts so you can know what's happening in your money world.
Next, make sure you are on a legitimate website or emails. One of the keys of they got this, it's a term called phishing. That's what they do with emails. They phishing to get you to go out there and click and open up the email, and sometimes they will launch a Trojan in on your computer. Just remember this on phishing, you all, with emails. You look at the extension. The extension is .com, .net, NIT, or .tv, or .org. It's not too many of us different than that. If you see something else, booty call, don't open the email, because you usually can tell by the extensions. You all pay attention to that, and because you don't want somebody to put a Trojan in on your computer. The other one is farming. That's what the websites, they try to get you to go out on those fake websites. Make sure you know and you're in legitimate places on the websites. And lastly, Dope.
Okay, technology can help you protect your assets. It can save you time and money. It can invest in your future and help you control all aspects of your finances. Use it. That's where the world is going.
Yeah, Dope. That's a lot of information. We packed it in like we always do. We want to thank everybody. We want to open it now for questions. We wrap this up. This is normally how we end, but we like to open up if anybody have any questions. We want you to put them down there in the comment box, and plus click on that like button before you leave out, because we get traction with that, But this is a great show as always, Dope. Is anything you like to add in closing?
No, we're just trying to pass on information. Give us comments. Let us know how we can improve. Let us help us to help you. That's all we're trying to do.
Yes. And remember, we're here every Thursday, Eastern Daylight Time, 8 p.m., the FITT Show, financial information for today and tomorrow. Dope. That was a lot of information. This was an interesting one because so many people are resisting technologies, and to resist is futile, y'all. It's coming here. We're going to a paperless society. You must feel comfortable, and the key is understanding what you are dealing with anything that we deal with, you all. Isn't that good? So, Dope, I like to close out by telling people we want to help you get your finances in shape. Thank you so much. We love y'all. Tune in next week, and we're coming strong again. All right, my friend Dope, you take care, my brother.
Peace.